Navigate to the bicycle casino. Hey, what's up guys? I just wrapped up a session at Live at the Bike. Definitely could have played better, definitely could have been more patient. It's Tuesday night, I'm in LA, it's late. I decided that I'm just gonna stay the night. The bike is booked, but the Commerce is open, so I'm gonna go book a room at the Commerce. But before then, I'm gonna mix it up in a 1-2 game, $40 buy-in with Ramsey and some of the other guys I just had dinner with. We'll see what happens.
Dude, I'm killing it. Close. No. I don't want to. There we go, baby. Hot.
Ooh, you're in bad shape.
What? Are we all in so I can show the hand? What's your gun? What do you have? You're not gonna win if you don't turn it over.
Oh,
He lost the joint!
Heart.
Hey, here, you need some money, bro.
You need a heart.
He flopped the nuts. What? All this
Heart.
No. Don't do it.
Oh.
I'm gonna bet 15.
Hold on.
That was a snap ball. This is terrible. Oh. Nice hand, dude. Oh.
Slow roll.
I'm not folding. Sam with the 70. Okay, whatever. I call. It was good.
That'd be a miracle.
Yeah, in a minute, dude. Hang on. Oh,
What are we working with?
you only got 2 triangles? 2 pair.
We're working with a good hand here.
What we got? Oh my God.
Really good shape.
Oh,
Johnny vibes.
Oh, he has a straight. He's got an open ender.
8 ball.
3.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
close.
not it.
3.
That's not it.
Johnny wins a hand.
We're gonna win a hand.
Less than 48, right? Million fades that today.
Good day.
I told him you need to move up to where they respect your raises.
Good morning, guys. I'm in a Commerce hotel room and I'm here to grind. So I checked in late last night after the shenanigans at the bike and I'm ready to go. I want to put in a session. I'm going to play all day today. I got to check out by 2 p.m. So I'm going to get down and get started and see where the day goes. But before I do that, I want to break down the hands from last night before I get into the day. So let's get started with the first hand. I'm only going to cover 3 hands from this session. I was extremely card dead, but the 3 hands that I am going to cover offer a lot of teaching tools and they really paint the picture for how the session went. And since I'm only going to cover 3 hands, I can get pretty in depth with these hands. So we'll start with this first hand that Daniel opens up from early position with Ace King suited, and Armenian Mike calls next to act, and I'm Next to act in the hijack with King Queen of Hearts. This is a spot where I'm gonna be calling a lot, but given that Armenian Mike called in the middle, it does add some dead money. So I decide to 3-bet it and take initiative in this hand. And I make it $205. It folds back to Daniel, and I see him mulling over his options. He rechecks his cards and calls pretty quickly. So given that Daniel raised under the gun, I have a general overall sense that Daniel's not messing around here, that he has a very good starting hand. So I'm already starting to narrow him down to pocket pairs, 8s and above, and ace queen suited, ace king, possibly ace jack suited. When Mike calls in between and we go 3 ways, it's really tough to range Mike at this point because I know that he is pretty loose pre-flop. So when the flop comes down ace queen 6 with 2 clubs, and both players check it over to me, there's $640 in the pot, and the standard play here often is to check. We do have second pair with top kicker, and we don't have any backdoor heart draws, but I decide that I want to maintain my range advantage here and give myself options on later streets. So I decide to bet, and I bet really small here, $225, because while I am mostly betting to maintain my range advantage against both players, I also want to bet for value, and $225 is a sizing that I can actually be betting for value here. So when Daniel quickly makes the call on the flop and Mike gets out of the way, starting to narrow Daniel's range down even further. I think that he folded a lot of his pocket pairs, and I don't think that he has a set here. So I think that he likely has a pair of aces. So I'm thinking that he either has ace king or ace jack. I think he probably would have check raised with ace queen, and I also do block the queen. So when the 9 of clubs comes on the turn, I do have options here to bluff, thinking that he's not going to call a 3-bet out of position with speculative hands. And I expect him to fold all aces that don't contain a club in them. But if he does happen to call, I want to keep the sizing pretty small in the turn so that I can give myself the option to move all in on the river. So the tentative plan here is to go 3 streets unless the club comes on the river. I may actually give up on a river club. I do expect all aces to fold on the river if we make it to that point. So this turn bet is to set up a river shove just in case he actually does call. As I suspected, Daniel did not have the king of clubs in his hand, and he just decides to let this one go. That's the beautiful thing about betting this flop, is that now because of my range advantage, he basically has to make a decision for all of his chips with a 1 pair type hand. So lucky for us, he lets it go and we don't have to fire in the 3rd barrel. And we take down a nice pot to start off the session. This next hand starts with Randy limping under the gun with pocket kings, and Joseph makes a raise to $50 in the hijack. Joseph is the type of player that's going to be isolating Randy's limp very wide. And I look down at pocket queens. This is an obvious slam dunk 3-bet for value against the range of cards that Joseph is going to have and the limping range that Randy's going to have. So I go ahead and stick in the 3-bet to 225 from out of position. And Randy elects to make the call here. And after Randy calls, Joseph ends up making the fold. I actually don't think that Randy has kings here. I think that he most likely has a pocket pair and he wants to see the flop. He's trying to get lucky and flop a set is what my initial thought is. Or he has a hand like ace king or ace queen suited. So when the flop comes king 10-3 rainbow, I think this is going to be a spot where I'm likely going to be way ahead of him or possibly be way behind. Possibly he would have a hand like ace king. So I decide to check it over to him, and when he checks it back, I don't think that he would be checking back ace king on this flop, so I definitely think I have the best hand here. When the 10 of clubs comes on the turn and I'm still in a spot where I'm going to be way ahead, way behind, I go ahead and check it over to him again. He seems really nervous. He's definitely fidgety, and he puts out a bet of 300, which is around 60% pot. Definitely can't be folding here because I think that, like I said, I'm going to be way ahead in a lot of spots here. So when the deuce of spades comes on the river and it's a complete brick, I check it over to him again. He's still a little fidgety and nervous and puts out a bet of $600. This is obviously a great price for me, about half pot. And I look at Randy, it's not really a live read type of situation. It's more of a price that I'm getting. And I just realized after looking at Randy that Randy's not the type of guy that's going to be value betting ace king on the river here. And he's not going to have king queen here. And he's not going to have very many tens for limp calling a 3-betting range. I think he's going to mostly have pocket pairs that he's turning into a bluff, or a nutted hand like pocket tens or pocket kings. We're gonna have to go based on the math and based on the fact that his value range is extremely narrow. So I think that this is definitely a really easy call here. It's just a call that I have to make.
Yeah, Johnny's gonna pay. Don't blame him.
Kings? Yeah, only kings.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when Johnny does his blog to hear his thought process behind that call. I could see a number of reasons. That's definitely going up.
Okay, last hand I will cover. This is about 3 to 4 hours into the session, and my VPIP has been so low. Definitely feeling the pressure to play some pots here and take some spots. So when Mike casually tosses in 50 bucks, getting a massage, and I look down at a suited king, this is good enough for me. I'm going to isolate Armenian Mike and 3-bet this one. I know that Mike is going to be calling almost all the time here. He doesn't ever really fold to 3-bets when he makes an initial raise. So I'm expecting him to call, which he does. It's actually really tough to narrow him down at this point because he's the type of player that is very splashy and very feel-based pre-flop. So he has a very wide range here. So when the flop comes down 10-4-7 rainbow, and he decides to donk lead out for around 60% pot. Donk lead, by the way, is a term where the player that doesn't have the betting lead in the hand decides to play out of flow and take the lead. Donk betting in general is going to be a marginal strength hand, or it's going to be a draw. It's rarely a nutted type hand. So with this in mind, and knowing that Armenian Mike will have hands like Jack 9 here, Jack 8, pocket 9s, pocket 8s, 5-6, he has all of those hands in his range. I decide to make a raise here, and when he snap calls, I think that he's not going to be in the mood to fold. So this is just a one-time freak out by me. I'm not going to be compounding my mistake here and putting more money in the pot, especially on the 9 of hearts turn. It's basically the worst turn card for the range of hands that I put him on. So I go ahead and give up here. Obviously not a good play by me, but like I said, I lost my patience a little bit and ended up costing me. I lost around $1,600 on the session live at the bike in 4 hours or so, and lost another $150 just messing around with Ramsey at the 1-2. So got to get back on the horse. Headed down to the Commerce 510 right now. I will catch back up with you guys after a few hours and maybe give you guys a little mid-session update like my homie Jamin Burton does. We'll see you guys in a little bit. Hey, what's up guys? I've been playing downstairs for about an hour and something insane just happened. So I'm just getting settled in. I'm not even filming this hand, and I look down at pocket queens under the gun. Go ahead and raise it up to $35. Folds to the cutoff and he calls. We're heads up to the flop. The flop comes down ace, ace, 6. And I go ahead and check it over to him and he checks it back. The turn is an ace. So now we have aces full of queens. So if our opponent has ace 7 or better, we are set up to win the jackpot here. And the jackpot at this time of day at the Commerce is $100,000. So I believe I stand to win $60,000 if he ends up having ace 7 or better. So when I check and he bets $65, I make the call, just like praying that he has ace 7 or better. And then the river comes a king. So now the only way that we can win the jackpot is if my opponent has ace king. I check it over to him and he puts out a bet of 300. And the only way that I can win the jackpot is if I actually call this bet, because the hands have to show down. I can't muck it. So I call and he has ace queen. So basically what happened is that if the river isn't a king, if the river is a queen, jack, any card other than a king, we hit the $100,000 jackpot, and my share would have been $60,000. And that means that I had a 92% chance of winning $60,000. And it kind of all came to me at once. And I know that you guys you guys have seen me running great lately, but in reality, I did have my best month ever in April. I won a ton of money, but I spent it all. I bought a Tesla, and World Series is coming up, and all the vacations, and the money's gone. So the 60,000 would have been nice. And then I'm like kind of shaking over this, and then the next shuffle I get dealt aces. I raise it up and go 5 ways. Flop comes king 8 deuce rainbow. I see bet. Everyone folds except for the big blind who completed. He calls. The turn's a jack. He checks, and I bet $175, and he calls again. And then the river is the perfect card. It's the deuce. I beat king jack now. Anything, maybe he has like pocket 8s, but I think he probably would have raised me prior to that. And I bet 475, and he check raises all in. This is the next shuffle. I just decided to fold because he's an old man, and I just like don't see old men check shipping on the river here for 1,000 more. I don't know if he had it, but the point is that I'm still like reeling from this 60K, in my mind, 60K loss. Then I lose this hand. Then a couple hands later, I get dealt pocket kings, and I end up making a tough fold with pocket kings. So at this point, like I have to come upstairs because I'm tilted. I can't like it. I'm trying not to be tilted, and I posted about it on Instagram, and people have been reaching out to me, and they're like telling me bad beat stories. First of all, don't tell me a bad beat story right now because I don't want to hear it. And other people are like, oh, keep your head up. And other people are like, oh my God, that's so tilting. But I need some time. I think I'm going to lay down for a minute. It's funny. I was just listening to a podcast that I did a couple days ago that was released today. And the guy who interviewed me talks about my positive mindset. And it's a great reminder. It's a great reminder for me right now. I'm just going to try to detox from this and get my mind right. Man, it's so tilting. It's just so tilting.
So the reason I wanted to interview you and the reason I like your blog is because I do think that exuding a positive vibe and dealing with failure the way you do, the same way you deal with a bad beat, you keep your head up and you keep plugging away and you don't let it ruin you. You don't let it poison you. You turn it into something positive.
So I'm not perfect, and I think that any poker player can definitely relate to this. We have our moments where we don't want to be positive and where things aren't going well. But I think that I've just brought this level of consciousness to it where when I am in a state that's not conducive for me, that's not serving me well, I have the awareness to try to shift out of it much quicker than I used to. Hey guys, I posted about this on Instagram and a lot of you reached out to me. This guy in particular, he sent me a message that said, I believe in destiny and fate, bro. So that money was never ever yours because it wasn't meant to be. Don't be sad about it. Keep crushing with things actually that are in your control like you always do. So this is so right. Thank you for the reminder, dude. The money was never mine. So it's so irrational for me to think that 92% of the time I'm going to win 60,000. Logically it makes sense, but it's still irrational in some sense. So I'm going to check out of the hotel. I'm going to take a walk and I'm going to play all day. I'm currently stuck around $1,000 in this commerce session. And you guys aren't going to hear from me until the end of the day. I'm going to update you on probably the biggest hand of the day that I played today and hopefully won back some money, because this is not what we do on Team Vibes. We regroup and we have a positive mindset and we don't let this stuff get us down. So thanks for the support, guys. I'll see you guys back in a little bit. Hey, what's up guys? I just wrapped up my session at the Commerce. I want to talk about one hand that I played today that was pretty interesting. We were playing 7-handed and it folded to the cutoff and he made a standard raise of $35. And I 3-bet from the small blind and the big blind folded. We have ace-10 of diamonds and the original raise are calls. So we go heads up to a flop. The flop comes down ace-king-5 with 2 diamonds. So obviously a really great flop for us because we have a top pair of aces and we have the nut flush draw. So I continuation bet here, and when he makes the call on the flop, I think that he's gonna have a lot of aces in his hands and definitely some aces to have me beat. And he's also gonna have some second pairs. He's gonna have some gutter broadways and he is going to have some flush draws as well. So when the turn comes to 7 of hearts, I can definitely size up a little bit here and just go for 3 streets. And I think that that's the best play, to size probably in the neighborhood of around $375. So I can set up a $1,000 river shove because we start the hand with around 1,500 at Commerce. It's just the way the stack sizes are. But in the moment, I thought that checking would be a deceptive play because it looks like that I don't have much here and that I'm just giving up. So I thought that if he did have a draw, like a gutter ball, or if he had some floats, or if he had a flush draw, that he would bet the turn. I actually thought he might bet the turn with some aces too, but in hindsight, I think that he's going to check a lot of aces back. I decided to check, don't really love it here, and he checks back. The river is the 7 of diamonds, and I decided to check one more time because I think that it doesn't look like I ever have a flush here. He seems like a good player, and he's going to be thinking about what I have and not just about what he has. So I think he may turn an ace with a weak kicker into a bluff. I think that he may value bet some hands, and I think he could have a flush sometimes, or he could have missed straight draws. So when I check it over to him and he uses a sizing of $260, this is the kind of sizing that I'm gonna have the best hand all day. And also he's capped here, he's never gonna have a full house because he didn't bet the turn. We're raising for value here, and we look to see how much he has left, and he has a little bit under 1,000 left after making this bet. He has around $900 left. So I go ahead and make it all in, shove it all in, and he thinks about it for a long time. He tanks for a long time, and I'm just banking on the fact that he's a good player and that he's going to realize that my range beats his range, and he might level himself into calling because he might think that I'm taking advantage of this range advantage that I have. So I stick it in, thinks about it for a long time, and he ends up making the fold. He asked me for a picture later on, so he is a vlog watcher and he is a fan. And he asked me what I had. I went ahead and told him that I had the ace-10 of diamonds, and he told me that he had the deuce-3 of diamonds. It's unfortunate that I couldn't get value from another flush. And not just after seeing his hand, I still think the better line here is to bet turn and then shove river. So it's definitely a mistake. I would actually chalk this one up to fancy play syndrome, which is not something that I usually do. I'm not an advocate of fancy play syndrome. So I played for a while today. I ended up winning somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 on the day, which was not a profitable trip to LA for me, but I'm ready to get home. That's it, guys. Thanks for following, liking, subscribing. If I don't see you guys in my comments, I will see you in a poker room near you. Thank you for following along. Vegas Knights, baby, with the big win. And we got a package that I want to open right now. It's a hoodie from Wino. Something from the trendy butler too. Actually really like the stuff. Thank you guys so much, and thank you for the message.